So earlier we learned about layer styles, and they're a super cool way to work with text, but I find that they don't work so great with photos most of the time. For photos, to really get those kind of cool effects that you've been thinking about when you think about Photoshop, you need to learn about filters. And when we start working with filters, one of the things that's most important is that we want to make our filters smarter. And a smart filter is just a regular filter that's applied to a smart layer or a smart object. When we brought in our picture of our bass player, we placed the image. And remember that that makes it a smart object. We can also tell that it's a smart object because it has this icon down here next to the thumbnail. So what we're going to do is click on this layer and experiment with filters. But I just want to introduce this concept. We're going to pick the one for the book, but there's a ton to explore, and I'm going to show you a couple ways to explore them really quick. So what we want to do now is go to our filter menu. And one thing about the filter menu is whenever you go to this menu and you're about to apply a filter to a layer, you want to make sure that this option is grayed out. And this will be grayed out whenever you're working on a smart object. And when you work on a smart object, it makes all of the filters smart. A smart filter can easily be undone later. It is a non-destructive way to work. If you work on just a regular JPEG, regular Photoshop layer, and you apply some filters and then close the file and open it again later, and you go, oh, I overdid that filter, I need to turn it down some, you're out of luck. There's no way to fix it. With smart filters, you can. So if this option is not gray, then you want to click it and you want to choose that option to convert your layer to a smart filter before you add the filters to your layer. Now, one way to explore them that's really fun is this filter gallery. And you can just move over and look at the image. And in here, you can just choose all these different options and see examples of how they work. You can change the settings to the filters and get an idea of what some of these filters do. So you can see that there's very powerful effects. It looks really cool, and it really changes the feel and look of the image. But you need to know that not every filter is available here in the gallery. For example, what we want is the blurs, and I don't see any blurs here. So I'm going to hit cancel and go back to filter. And I'm going to go to blur, surface blur. Now this is a blur that I like to use a lot when I am experimenting. Another very popular blur that's fun to play with is the Gaussian blur. Very, very popular. But surface blur has a little bit of a different feel, and so I've been playing with this a little bit more. But all of the blurs here are sort of fun to play with and explore, so feel free to experiment. I'm going to choose a surface blur if you're following along in the book, and I just like to get the image up to where I can kind of see it. And whenever I open a filter, I always, just like every setting that has sliders, I slide them. That's why they're there. They are there to be slidden. Is it slidden or slid? See, this is why I make pretty pictures instead of writing books. Oh, wait. I did write a book. So I'm just changing this and seeing how it makes my image look. And I'm just crank them high, I bring them down low, and then it just gives me an idea for what it does and sort of helps me dial in the feeling that I want. And one thing that I love about this filter is I often get this feeling that's almost like I'm looking through glass with condensation on it. And there's just something about it that I really like. It's almost like it's glowing. So this is something that I generally like to experiment with, is this surface blur. And those settings are looking pretty good. And remember, I don't care about these numbers. I don't look at the numbers. I look at my image. And once it's set in a way that I am happy, I just click OK. And now I can see that this smart filter is added to my layer. In the next video, we're going to talk about how you can modify this and all the different ways to sort of expand the way that a smart filter works on your document.